boards, which is our topic for today. Oh, and recording has started. Excellent. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to show you an existing class that has some Blackboard discussion boards in it. I'm just going to pop into one of our best practices courses that we ran over the summer. And I'm going to show you how we set this up because one of the things I was hearing as we started this was I'm looking for how I can integrate this into my class. I'm looking for how I can set up my course expectations in a way that encourages students to participate in the discussion board openly, honestly, freely, and sets them up for success. And then also is something that's gradable for me, something that I can go through and work on. So I'm going to go, and I'm just going to pick in this class, we kind of followed our what we think are our best practices of modifying this left-hand menu a little bit. And we have a location that's just labeled Start Here. It goes through some things to get students started for the class. And it looks like one of the things that we want them to do is to go to a virtual office. And we use a virtual office, we use a discussion board as a place for students that they can ask questions, and we can go and get answers to those questions. So I'll look at this virtual office. It looks like we've got a space in here where students could, and these are all faculty members, which is why I don't care about showing their names and everything. It's all right. That we've got a list. They could ask a question, and then either other classmates or the instructor could respond to it to help them out. And we like to use this as like a public space. Those questions that you would normally like ask at the end of class that might apply to everybody. How is this being graded? Where's the rubric for this? I had trouble finding this assignment. Those types of things that the whole class might benefit from, not like I got a 98 and I really wanted that, I really need that 99 on my paper. Those are more personal and would be better for office hours. So I'm just going to show from the user perspective, we normally ask our students to create their original thread when they do this. And so as a student, what I would do is I would click on Create Thread. And this is what I see. I see the forum description. So it's my last chance to kind of like see the prompt or see what the question was that my faculty member wanted to do. And they have a subject line. And here's my first kind of tip for those that are thinking about using discussion boards in their class. Coach your students a little bit about the subject line. I can't tell you, the most common subject line is something like this. Ed Beck discussion question 1. That's terrible. Don't have your students do that. What you need is clickbait in here. What you need is a description of what you're trying to get across in your message, and just training students to make sure that their subject line is a summary of what they're trying to say. Why discussion boards are the best part of Blackboard. Can just help them drive people to want to read their post and make sure they're getting that engagement. So, you know, have a little section or a little time in your class where you say like, hey, let's just think about subject lines. What's important? Why is this the headline of your course? And if we think about the culture of getting clicks on emails, getting clicks, what will make your fellow students want to read your part? In here, you have a editor. It's the same editor as the rest of Blackboard, which means you can add pictures to a discussion board post. You can embed videos in a discussion board post, and you can just write a post like most people do. So they have a lot of the same tools that you have in other places in Blackboard to be able to create those posts. They can attach one file to a discussion board post as well. So if you were setting up a discussion board, maybe you got an idea, I want to use a discussion board for peer review. And I want them to be able to post their full assignment the way they've formatted it and everything. And I want the students to be able to download that, read it, and give them some comments right on the discussion board. So that attachment option is available for the student. So that's the student view of the discussion board. I'm going to show you a little bit about how I sometimes look at discussion boards, because one of the things I heard from the chatter at the beginning was, they can get overwhelming, both for the instructor and for the students. So one of the things that I often do on discussion boards is I think about the different ways that you can view a discussion board. I'm going to go to the left-hand side, and we have a link, and this link will go to all discussion boards. And right here, I have the link to the virtual office. I can see on here, there's 70 posts. 5 of them I haven't read yet, but none of them were directly at me. None of them were replies to my posts. So I can click on here, and this will bring me to a list of the 5 unread posts. Sometimes on the discussion board, it can feel kind of overwhelming that you have to kind of like root through the discussion board to find what's new. And so just knowing that that option's available, that you can like kind of just see, here are the things I haven't read yet, might be very useful. So when you read them and when you've seen them, you could mark them as read. Right from this screen, you could write a quick reply, or you can do nothing. In this particular screen, you do have to click the mark as read to get them out of that list for the future. I'm going to go back to discussions. And you can see now I marked 2 of them as read. So now there's less there. And I'm going to go to one more area. So I've shown you 3 ways that I can look at a discussion board. I can go into the actual discussion board. I can go and try to look at the ones where I have unread posts, and those will show up over here. I have 100 posts. You can see it's also bolded, that I can see which ones I haven't replied to yet or I haven't even read yet. So that was one way to do it. I showed you that you can go to the discussion board link on the left-hand side, and I can use this post, these buttons right here, where I can say, like, I want to just see the unread ones. Or I can even look at the ones that are replying to me over there. And the third way, and this is actually my favorite, though I know it's not for everybody, is you have this My Blackboard menu that's in the top right corner. And one of the buttons over here is the discussion board button. And what this button will actually do is it shows you the most recent posts across all of the courses that you're taking or teaching. Okay? So that's all. You can also filter that out and see who's replying to a discussion board that I've already participated in, who's replying to me, and I like to keep track of that. And then over here in the custom, what this is you can see a list of your classes. And so if you're teaching more than one class, it's probably pretty confusing that all of your classes are mixed together. You could look over here and say, I want to see who's posted most recently in section 1, or who's posted most recently in section 2 of the July course. Those are all available to me as ways to find what's going on. Where's the action in my discussion board? I'm going to go back, and there's one final way to do this, because in Blackboard, why would you want to have just one way to do it when you could have 5? So here's a 4th way. And if the discussion board is going to be graded, you've got a graded discussion board, you can set it up so that discussion posts will pop up in the needs grading area of the Grade Center. And I'll show you how to do some of those settings. So what happens here is when you have the minimum number of posts for a discussion board, it will pop into that needs grading area. So if you said, you know what, the minimum requirement here is you need to have 3 posts, you can set that in the discussion board. And once they have those 3 posts, it will show up on this list and you can grade that single user or all users. When you are in this screen, what it will show you is on the left-hand side, it will show you all of that student's posts. And those can either be in reverse chronological order or chronological order. So you have that over here, and you can put in a grade for that. Okay, we have this discussion board is associated with a rubric, and we've gone through and we've run sessions on rubrics in the past, but I'll just show you what it looks like. If I click it, it will pop out, and we've got a whole rubric for this discussion board. I have some requirements that we can go through, like, okay, I want good content and grammar. I want to make sure that you have done all of the replies that you are asked to. We ask students to come in and reply on 2 different days of the week, which means most of our discussion boards basically have 2 due dates. For the best practices course, we call it the 2 by 2 by 2 golden rule. What we mean by that is we want our first post by the 2nd day of the week. That's the first 2. So by Tuesday every week, you need to have done your first post. We ask the students to come back and reply to 2 of their classmates. So it's the second 2 of the rule. And the third 2 of the rule is you can't do all of that on one day. So you can't go in on Tuesday, do your initial post, and then reply to all your classmates on Tuesday. We want you to come back sometime later in the week, so that everybody has the chance to put their initial post and you can go that. We want them to come back multiple times. And so that's why we came up with that 2 by 2 by 2 golden rule. All of your posts, the minimum posts, are due by the end of the week. So we say, okay, that first post is due by Tuesday. You need to be finished with all your posts by Sunday. And what we've tried to do with that is it's a repeatable pattern that students can get used to throughout the course. Oh, it's Tuesday, better get that initial post in. Oh, got to make sure I get my replies in by Sunday. We don't think that that's like the perfect law of discussion boards, but it's just a simple and easy to understand way to get students started. And that would be one of my biggest advices. If you're going to be using frequent discussion boards, keep it a little bit consistent in the way that you're using that. Let students get into a routine in what they're doing. So I'm going to go to module 2, and I'll show you how we set up the discussion board so that you can see it. In each of our modules, we always put like a checklist of things to do. And so here's my checklist of to-dos. And we even have some choice involved in this course, like, oh, you have to watch 3 of the 6 videos or readings. And that's just something that we've done. But here's that, like, 2 due dates, like submit your initial post by Tuesday. All of your replies are due by Sunday. Some people like to be very specific with that, but we had just kind of told students, when we say Tuesday, we mean 11:59 p.m. It has to be submitted on Tuesday. But, if you wanted it due by 5 o'clock, you could also put that in there. And here's my actual discussion board. And that's the other thing that we have done for this course is we make sure that everything that we need is right on this same page. That way students can kind of go linearly through this course, top to bottom. We haven't organized it where like all the discussions are over here, all the tests are over here. And it's like a scavenger hunt every week to find what they need and where that is in the course. We say, you know what, here it is, just top to bottom, just go through there. So I'm going to open up this discussion board, and we'll just go through some of those settings that we have. Okay. One of the things that can be confusing about setting up discussion boards is you have two places that you can put information. You've got the link to the discussion board, and then you've got what you put in when you first set it up. And my advice to everybody is to both be aware that that's a confusing thing, and then just to copy and paste it so that those two places are identical. Have the same directions put into both places. So I'm going to just copy this so I have this for later. And then I'm going to get out of this screen, and I'm going to go like I was setting up a new discussion board. So I'm going to go into the Tools menu. And I'm going to go to Add a Discussion Board. And we're going to go to the Create a New Board. Yes, if I had already created this from a different place in Blackboard, it would be there and I could just add it. And here are the list of all the discussion boards that are currently in my course. But I'm just going to go and click that button where it says Create a New Forum. Okay. Remember that description, when I went through it from the student thing, the description was the last thing the student sees when they go to create a new thread. So it can be really helpful if you just reiterate what the question is or reiterate what the prompt is, but keep it short. You know, keep it like 1 paragraph long or 2 paragraphs long. If it's 15 pages long, it's going to push that discussion board forum way down on the page. So there is a little bit of a balance in there. You can limit discussion boards by certain dates. I actually don't like to do that in my courses. I like to just have the materials be available and then manage whether the students are able to post or whatever in other ways. What this will do is it will actually make the discussion board appear and disappear after it's done. And I think that if we've taken all the time to organize a course the way I have kind of advocated for, where each module is in its different place, there's no reason to make it disappear, because I don't think it's a terrible thing if a student decided to go back and look at a module after it was done, or continue to look at things. But you can manage them through this menu right here. This is where we can handle the different tools in here. The standard view lets students look at all the posts at any time, but there is that option that students must post first before they can see other people's posts. And this is a feature that's often requested by faculty members. They really like that idea. They don't want students to be able to just rehash what's already been said on the discussion board. They want to make sure that that first post is an original post. And so they like to force that first post. If you do that, Blackboard will just remind you, hey, this is a first forum. You might want to give some additional information or additional warning to the students about how to do this and what this is like. By default, forums come in ungraded, but you can grade the discussion forum. I prefer to grade the entire discussion forum and not try to grade individual threads. I do not recommend you say grade threads. I suggest you grade the entire forum. And what that means is when you go to that grading screen, it will gather all of the students' participation throughout the entire forum, whether it was their initial thread or whether it's replying to other students. It will all be there in one space. So I prefer that grade discussion forums there. And you can put out how many points it is. I like to keep everything out of 100, but some people, say like, oh, discussion forums are 10 points and quizzes are 50 points, and then your tests are 100 points or some other grading paradigm. This right here determines if things show up in that needs grading area of your gradebook. So if I were grading this and I was trying to get my students to follow that 2 by 2 by 2 golden rule, which means they need a total of 3 posts, I can set it up that they won't show up in that needs grading area until they've done all 3 of their required posts. So that's pretty cool. I like that. You can choose to use that or not. You can make it so they show up after 1 in the needs grading area. This is how I prefer to set due dates, is by doing it down here. I can say, okay, my discussion forums, it should be done by Sunday at the end of the day. Acknowledging that you're still going to have to go through and explain to students what your policy is on forums. I think it is really good practice to give 2 due dates for every forum, because we know that our students, and we also know that online students, both these groups, are very deadline motivated. And sometimes if something's due at 11:59, you start to see the first post pop up at 11 o'clock. And what we don't want is, we don't want it to be in a situation where there's not time to have meaningful interaction. That's why we spread those due dates across the entire week. You can choose to add a rubric if you would like. You can create a new one, or if you have an existing rubric you like to use. So I have that discussion post and participation rubric that I already showed you, and I can just add that right to the evaluation, and I can choose whether or not to show that rubric to students. And I think if I've gone through all the effort to create a rubric, that I want the students to be able to see it. So we want students to be able to subscribe to the forum if they would like. And there's some extra options here. You can allow a student to delete their own posts. You can allow students to edit posts. Those are shut off by default, but sometimes students, accidentally post things, or maybe they accidentally hit the submit button twice, and you should really treat every submit button on the internet like it's a credit card button. Click it once and then get your hands away from the mouse. But maybe they double click that thing and they ended up with 2 of the same posts there, and they really want to just delete one. You can let them delete or not. And you have some options here where it's like, you could say you can only delete it if no one else has replied to you. I don't want you deleting something off that students have already replied to. So there's that option. You can decide whether you want them to be able to edit their own published posts if they want to go back and fix a typo that happened, or not. If your style is that you're going to have the students creating their new threads, they're going to make their own threads, make sure that you have that allowed there. You can turn on and off file attachments, and turn on and off the ability to quote another student, and that just puts it in a big block quote. It's not much of anything. I do not recommend the forced moderation of posts. You don't want to be the gatekeeper that has to allow every post on the whole discussion board to be through. My opinion is, you're trying to set up discussion boards as places where students can collaborate with each other and have that moderation. So those are the basic things that are part of the discussion board. And if I was all done, if I was happy with all my settings, I could press submit. Remember, I just copied the directions from the other one. I'm not going to create this new one. I'm not actually going to go through and press submit. I'm actually going to press cancel right here. And so what I've done is, now that discussion board would show up in this list right here. And now I could add the link to that discussion board. And so I'm going to add a link to the chat cafe right into this module. And it's going to show me one more time this place. Remember, I said there's 2 places where you can add, and my advice was to copy and paste the exact same information into both places, so it's there both on the page and right before they press submit. I would copy and paste that one more time and have all the directions right there. And if I was done, and this was how it was set, I could press submit, and then it would look like just the way it looks like in this course. If I went to the module, I'd have a discussion board right in the module. I do have the discussion tool over on the left-hand side, and if I went over there, I'd have the same information available. These will show up on this board in the order that they were created in the class. So you might want to edit the order of these, and you can do that by clicking on this yellow button right here and dragging and dropping and moving those up or down. I like to make sure that everything in here on this list is in the order that they would have it be done. But that's how I would set up the discussion boards in the class. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And take some time and ask you, what are your questions? Based on what I showed you, what do you still have things that you want to know? Go ahead, Gwen.
Sorry, did it again. No, Mike, sorry. This is a little off topic, but if I were to make the discussion boards pass fail, how does that get graded into the grade book? What does it do to the rest of the averages?
What I would do, I think, if I were making my discussion boards pass fail, what I would do is I would edit the column for the discussion board.
You know, pass fail is an option there all over the grade book, and I've just never played with it.
Yeah. Sorry.
I can just go experiment on myself. I can just go submit some pass fail stuff and see what it does to my preview grade.
But my advice would actually be to move it, this primary display, to show complete incomplete.
Okay.
And have no secondary display. But still keep the points possible.
Yeah.
There. And then what happens is it just turns into a check mark to say complete.
Okay. Thanks.
But what I've done when I did this, what I've done is, it's because of the way we've done that, it's still out of 15 points, and that 15 points will still go into the grade book as 15 points. It will still calculate exactly the same as it was before, but by just going in here and going to column information, it's just how it's displayed to the student is in kind of a very non-threatening way and in a non-graded way.
Non-threatening is nice. I'm trying to deal with a 100 level class. I'm trying to be easy on them for the first couple of weeks, and then I'll start being more demanding when we know what we're doing. Anyway, thanks.
I like the optimism there that we'll figure out what we're doing by the end of the semester.
Yeah.
Anybody else? I know you've got questions. What are they?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So for me, what I want to do weekly basis is have students put a post up or create a thread to answer the post statement or question or whatever I put up there. It's typically going to ask them to, it's really a few sentences to apply something, and more so motivating and encouraging them to read the textbook, to truly read it, to apply something they've learned in the textbook to a real world example. So I want them to post that and do it by 5:30. And then for the response portion of that, I'm going to ask them to respond to those that made posts, to do that by 11:59 that night, to give them the time and flexibility to do it. So
their initial post and final post are due on the same day?
Right, they're due at the same day, just different times. So the original post should be by 5:30, or for me, it's the start of class. And then the response would be due by the end of the night.
Okay.
So my question is more or less, what should I have it? Because the thing is, if a student just doesn't post it by 5:30, I don't want them to not be able to see the posts that are made to be able to make a response. So should I leave it in the standard view versus the other option?
Yeah, I think I would. I think I'd leave it in the standard view. I don't really like the post first, and I don't know if it's just because like I'm an anxious person, but I don't like having to like put a post out there, not knowing like, am I
Right.
going to come out here with a 15 paragraph post when everybody else did like one paragraph, and that was and that's the norm, things like that. But also like I need to just be able to get over that as a semi-functioning adult. I guess, apparently. But I don't really like that post for first feeling. And I tend to just be like, hey, leave it an open book, especially if you're asking students to do something that's hard to copy.
Right.
So I like your assignment. What I like about your assignment is, yeah, the vocab term that they're using might be the same.
Right.
But the assignment is asking to get a real world example for that vocab term, and that would be hard to copy or hard to cheat on, because I'm assuming you want a different example than what somebody else has given. They're not allowed to give the same real world example for multiple things. And people do similar assignments to this. One of the common kind of internet assignment is like or common online learning assignment is do this and support it from one article that we read together as a class that I provided for you, and go out and find a library resource that also supports what you're trying to say, to make it very connected to our library catalog, and also to be focusing on research skills. And those types of things are hard to copy because they have to go find a different paper, find a different thing, and explain what that means, and add it in. And I know that's not directly answering your question. I'm just pointing out the parts of your assignment that I really like, because I think that they are good best practices for when you're setting up these types of assignments and making sure that they're rigorous, and academically applicable to what we're doing. The one thing, if I were you, that I think I might rethink is the same day aspect of that. Unless you were going to end class early and say, hey, this is your last 20 minutes of class, and this is where you need to go back to that discussion board and reply to your other classmates' posts. And this, I'm giving you time out of class to be able to do this, because
Right.
otherwise it is asking quite a bit, I think.
I had thought about that too, and for me, the mentality is there's still the flexibility for students to get it up sooner than 5:30, because they'll have essentially the whole week. It's just the class time is typically 5:30 to 8, and I'm gonna meet with them for a half hour, if that, to go over items, and then set up a class agenda to kind of the expectations of what I want you to do, given this would have been a typical 5:30 to 8 o'clock class time. So they should use that as an opportunity, or that time frame, to respond to the discussion board. Or if someone's made posts, prior to that date at 5:30, that they can go in there and they can make a response to one that's already in there. So there's still room for flexibility, so to speak, and a portion of the class time is intended, that the segment of time that I have, 5:30 to 8, is intended to be, the time is inclusive of responding to the discussion board.
Okay, good. Now that I have a little more information, like I think that's good, and I think that's appropriate. I think right now we're talking about a mixture of synchronous and asynchronous tools in just in a way that hasn't often been done in higher ed, because normally you're fully synchronous or you're fully asynchronous, and not a lot of this kind of mixed mixture of these. And I think that brings some unique possibilities in. If you had a Tuesday class meeting and said, hey, I'm going to divide you up into your groups. And by the end of this time, I want an initial post from your group. And I want to end in 2 open-ended questions. And that's going to become the questions that all of your classmates are going to respond to. So we'll have those 3 groups. So we'll have a total of 6 questions. And your classmates have to go and choose which 2 they're going to respond to. I think that's cool. And that could be a way to use the discussion board to drive some small class time, to have a tool or a task that they need to be done in that time and a dedicated output, and then use that output to continue to use it asynchronously throughout the week. That could be really cool. That could be something that I would enjoy doing as a student. And so I think there's a lot of possibilities open up right now.
Thanks. Thanks for the feedback.
Ed, I have 2 questions. How are you today? Thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
One, I just kind of played around and tried to submit something, and I saw that you could have students' responses be anonymous, but it's kind of crossed out. So I wondered what that was about. And the second question is, once I get it set up for one class, how can I copy it into the other class without doing everything twice?
Yeah, so the discussion boards, you can use the copy option. Oh, it doesn't let you go between different courses. What you would need to do to copy between 2 courses is you would have to use the package and utilities and use the import export to be able to do that. And if you're trying to do that, if you're building your course throughout the semester, that's going to get messy.
There's certain things that I'll want to import that I used last semester into this semester's classes, but when I'm creating new things, I was just wondering if you can do that.
No, not really. But I think the best thing to do was, the directions are going to be the most time intensive thing, and I think just copy and paste would be the best way to do that, because you're going to have to move, course contents. And I suppose you could go and say, like, I want to only move my module 2 and 3 and 4 course contents.
Right.
And make sure discussion board is included in that. But I think it's gonna get messed up a little bit.
Okay.
I think honestly your best option to not dig a hole for yourself is to plan on the cut and paste, because if you move stuff and it goes bad, you're gonna spend a lot of time deleting.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say is when you move discussion boards, pay attention to this option right here. Include starter posts for each thread, or include only the forum with new starter posts.
You need to share your screen. I can't see what you're doing.
I am so sorry. I've been pointing at my screen and sharing, gesturing wildly.
You look great, but I don't really see what you're.
How awesome is that? So I'm here in this area. What I was saying before is you can say I only want the stuff that's in certain folders or certain modules. If you've set it up so that you have different folders right here, different content areas right here on the left-hand side, you could say I only want modules 2, 3, and 4 content areas. But what I was trying to warn about is that can get messy and that can get messed up too easily. I don't think that's a totally good option. But if you are moving courses that you've used the discussion board in, and you're getting ready to export, the thing you have to check for is this option right here with discussion board. The 2 options are include starter posts or include only the forums. And what I think most people want is include only the forums. If you say include starter posts, in each forum. What that means is if I were to go here and use this module 2 discussion board as an example, every single one of these first posts would get included in the export, but instead of saying the name here, it would just switch to say anonymous. And I don't think that's what most people want.
Right.
Who that might be good for are if you are the type of instructor that you create 3 threads and the 3 threads say like, what is blank? How do we find blank? You know, and you expect your students to come in and just respond to threads that you've started. Then if you set up your forums in that way, then you would want to include those starter posts because that would not delete those. You wouldn't have to recreate those at the beginning of every semester. But for most people that are putting one discussion question and asking students to create the threads, you're going to want to move it to that other end. So I'm just going to show you how to get back there one more time. I went to the export course screen and went to export package. And this is how many people move courses between semesters. We want to just double check this setting if we're using those discussion boards. And I prefer with no starter posts. And what's important about that is that's not the default.
Okay, and the question about, is there a way for students to post anonymously? Like say you have a controversial topic and you want students to be able to speak openly about something but not attach their name to it, but get their thought out.
Yeah, I'm gonna go quickly to the Blackboard help, and I'll just send you the page on anonymous forums.
Okay.
Because it's not something that I do all the time, and I don't want to give you the wrong advice here. While I'm looking that up, anybody got another question they want to prime my brain about? Got 7 minutes left.
Yeah, Ed, this is Lee. How do we prevent discussion burnout with students if they're taking 4 courses and we all got them doing discussion boards? I could see that might get a little tiring. So do you have a recommendation, like how often should we be employing discussion boards in our classes to prevent? Because I think these are a lot of great tools, but I'm worried that students are just going to be.
I'm going to answer that question completely honestly. I'm more worried about Zoom fatigue and fatigue about being in these online meetings all day, every day, than I am about over saturation of discussion boards. Because I think most people are moving towards a course organization where they're basically running their class exactly the way they would and just using Zoom. I'm not sorry, not Zoom, but Microsoft Teams as the counterpart. And so I think that judging by how many people showed up to our Teams training early in the week and how many people showed up to our discussion board training today, I think that you might be actually giving more variation in your class, and I think the variation is going to be important this semester. And I wouldn't worry that everybody's doing discussion boards because I don't think they are.
Okay.
And that's totally anecdotal, and that's totally just on what we've been hearing from different faculty members. But that's my perception right now.
Okay, but I think too, what I've heard that it's a good idea to use your class time for these type of things and not make everything outside of
and
class, that you give them time to do the discussion.
The 2 biggest things that are hard to do in an online course are the organization and the structure of the course. And my advice was about discussion boards was like trying to build as much structure into the course as you could. And the second thing that's just really hard to do is what we refer to as instructor presence. And instructor presence is the student's perception that the instructor is there for them and is helping them through the course. And I think we're all there for our students, but it's the student perception that you're there for them and helping them out. And some students are going to focus on, do I see my professor's face? You know, and I think that's part of human nature. If you could reply to every email within, 15 minutes, but I think that some students gravitate towards this type of interaction right here. And so when I heard, coming from the college, we really want to see a lot of synchronous activity. What I heard from that is they're really concerned that our students feel like they have a connection to our faculty. And the way we know how to do that best is video calls. That's how we know. And so that was the easiest thing to mandate was, just do some video calls, do some synchronous stuff. Me being more from the online learning background, and traditional online learning is more asynchronous. The traditional online learning, what we do in the summer, what we do in the winter, the way all of our graduate programs are set up. I think there's a lot of ways that we can show that culture of care, and to do that even on discussion boards, to do that in emails, to do that in videos and asynchronous things. But if that's the goal forward, I think we can just be really clear on, this is why we're doing things the way we are.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So to kind of piggyback on that discussion, with discussion boards, I've done the asynchronous summer teaching quite a bit, and I've been asking my former students from those classes what sort of they liked, what they didn't like, just trying to get a better feel, the students who I know well. And even my best students who performed really well on the discussion boards are telling me that they felt like it was busy work.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my goals is to try to find a balance between having meaningful discussion with, using citations and making it feel less like busy work. And I don't know how to do that. Do you have any suggestions?
I don't have a ton of suggestions because, at some point, all work to students is going to feel like busy work.
Yeah.
And so some suggestions. Making sure that the discussion board topic or the questions you're asking closely align to what the big idea you want them to take away is. So, here is the main idea for the week, and here's why we're doing this discussion board topic. And sometimes, honestly, it helps just to slow walk students through that. Like, hey, this is why this is so important. I heard you say like a little bit about required citations or required outside sources. I really like that as part of a discussion board directions or one of the requirements. But sometimes I think to myself that if we go too overboard requiring like citations, it's almost like we're like really trying to prove that this is academic. And I think about what is the equivalent assignment that we're trying to replace with a discussion board. And I can think of all types of classes where I kind of had to come up with like a one-page paper to prove that I had done my reading, and I had to have all the citations in there. And it was kind of my faculty members' way of like saying, like, I need you to come to class prepared and prepared to talk. But in a typical class, once the discussion starts, I don't think you have to go out and find a new resource and bring it into the discussion in order to be allowed to participate. And so sometimes I like to think about, maybe that initial post needs to have different requirements than the replies.
Yeah.
Maybe that initial post is the one that needs the citations and needs the outside materials but once you have that initial post, maybe the other ones could be a little less formal. Maybe the other ones could have less requirements or not require a citation or not require formal footnotes, or because that would be like, that's really replacing that class discussion. And so maybe setting up those norms might change how people perceive the discussion boards. I don't know about that.
That's a good idea. I guess, I always made the initial posts be required, and then responses, it wasn't required, but only if you didn't want to earn an A. Like, to earn an A, all your responses had to have citations too. Maybe I need to ease up on that.
I would make the responses required. I would require responses, but maybe I don't require a ton of responses. Maybe I require one response or two responses, but I would require the responses, because, and here's the feel of it for me. If I put all this work into a great post and then I felt like nobody looked at it, that's what would make me feel like it was busy work. But if I had classmates coming in and saying like, oh, I really liked how you said this, but I disagree with you here, that now I'm thinking like, oh, not only did I do this, but it also contributed to the furthering of the class. And, there's some little things you can do, little tips and tricks that can help you do that. I said like, hey, make your students have a subject line. Make your students have a subject line and finish their last sentence. Have it be an open-ended question and have them just bold it. This is the question I want my classmates to answer. And see if that helps students feel like they want to engage with the material and answer the question and keep people coming back. Because I think if your students were getting responses to their stuff, and not just from you, because you could respond to everybody and be doing a whole ton of work, and you're like, oh, well, she only read it because she has to. But if they get their classmates coming back, I think it's going to have a different feel to it.
Thanks, that's helpful.
And a lot of you know me. You know that I continue to be an online student. When I was choosing a PhD program, I chose University of Albany because they had a mixture of face-to-face, online classes, asynchronous online, and synchronous online. And I would normally set my schedule up so that I would take one asynchronous class per semester and one synchronous class per semester to help me manage my time. So I've taken a lot of asynchronous courses. And so sometimes when I say things, it's also me talking as a student. This is what I preferred and this is what I did. And so when I say like, if I put something out there and nobody responded to it, that's real right there. Like, that's not me like guessing. Like, if I put all the time to do a great initial post and nobody responded to it, I feel like poop, I can edit that out, right?
I have a quick question. I'm trying to figure out how to make more faculty presence. Because I have already been working on hybrid courses and I've got elaborate, detailed lecture notes keyed slide by slide to hefty PowerPoint slideshows that I'm trying to chunk up into shorter things. Since I've already done that, I'm kind of disinclined to just like read over it in reading over the PowerPoint slideshow. But I was thinking about places where I might insert a little short video, like on slide 1 of the PowerPoint show, just a little few comments from me. And maybe, I'm not sure if this would work easily, at the beginning of the discussion board, I can embed a little short video of me in that text box, right? And
yeah.
Be asynchronous, but it would be me saying.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to pull up a website. I'm actually going to share my screen this time so that you can see what I'm looking at. And I don't think the TLTC blog is the most beautiful and best thing in the world, but I do like it. And I'm thinking about how we did these tips for remote teaching. Okay, a lot of these, all of them really are short, right? But what we've done here is we have some written communication. We normally have a video, but this one's like all video. Bar goes and gives like a step-by-step. Let's say we were looking at one that was more written. And this is, we've intentionally kept these short, like 5 or 6 paragraphs. But let's say that we had 10 paragraphs here. Let's say that this was like a reading based on our course that we were talking about. And we wanted to do a video, but the video was, we were just going to make it like 3 or 4 minutes long. And what the video was going to be is, hey, here's me, your instructor. I've got this whole reading for you to do, but here are the 3 most important things I want you to take away from this. And here's what I want you to bring to class. This is your open-ended question that I want you to bring to class.
Yeah.
So now you've had this little asynchronous thing. You've got it really short, saying like, okay, here's my video that's kind of introducing this topic, telling what I think is most important in here, and then the response. Using that kind of multimedia approach, I think would be great, and I think that your students would both see that it's you and put in and have that long reading that they can like go through and it's more like lecture notes or something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly when I thought of this, is because I keep forgetting that important part at the beginning. These are the 3 things we're going to talk about today. That would be nice for them to know. And that little video thing seems like a good place to do that.
Yeah, and sometimes we're kind of, we as teachers, we tend to get a little impersonal, and kind of like, these are the facts, ma'am, just like,
Yeah.
here it is. And I would lean in on that little short video, and say like, and this is what I think is most important, and to let them know this isn't just you like reading off a script. This is why you've included what you've included. This is why, and this is what you hope their big takeaways are from this, and just kind of lean into that a little bit. But again, that's my teaching persona, and maybe not yours. So you have to figure out,
That sounds good. Thanks.
Yeah. Hey, we're 7 minutes over. I'll keep answering any questions you got, but I want to be respectful of your time. Anybody else got a question they want to answer? Hey, Diana, did you see I put in the chat? I was having a real hard time finding the anonymous discussion board directions.
Okay. You want me to find them?
Yeah. And it was Danielle that wanted those, right? Danielle, we'll shoot you an email.
Simone.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Simone. It was Simone that wanted it. Simone, we'll shoot you an email with those.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Nice mask. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.